which I was also using with, and I found myself pregnant. And this was not somebody that I planned on getting pregnant by, not somebody that I planned on marrying. It was just convenience. And he had warrants for his arrest when I found out I was pregnant, and I kept asking him to turn himself in. And for 3 of those months, he knew I was pregnant, would not turn himself in, and I kept thinking, I'm going to be pregnant, or I'm going to have a baby and be by myself, because he's going to be in prison. And finally, he did get busted and went to prison. And my mom, I was living at home with my mom at the time, and I have 2 sisters. I'm in the middle, and we're all 3 pregnant at the same time. and we're all living at home with my mom. And my younger sister was actually pregnant with her 2nd baby. My mom had been supporting her baby, and her boyfriend, who was also living with us. And I was working on straightening out my life, getting clean. I was going to church, I was going to meetings, and just doing something to get better, but I still felt hopeless. I didn't know what I was going to do. And anyways, my mom presented the idea of adoption to me, but it wasn't for me. It was for my younger sister, because she didn't think she could help financially support another baby. And so when she presented that idea of adoption, I said, maybe I need to do that. Maybe I should do that. And she goes, well, I didn't intend for it to be for you. And but I was like, no, I need to look into this. So I was actually going to go to Utah at a home. And I was so miserable in my living at home, and just the environment that I was in. And I cried every night. And I cried out to God, and I was like, please help me. Why did you allow me to get pregnant? I'm not going to be able to take care of baby. I can't even take care of myself. I was angry at God. And I always believed in God, but I was never actually a follower of him, because I was lost. And so my mom, she could see my hurting. Like, I cried out every night, and she said, I'm going to take you on a vacation. And we were going to go to Florida, but that didn't work out, so we came to California. And I was actually born here in California, but we moved to Georgia when I was young, and it had actually been 10 years since I had been here, and that was when my dad passed away. So we came here last for my dad's funeral, and so I'm coming here, getting to know my aunt and uncle, who we stayed with for my first time as an adult, and all they knew about me was my history with drugs, and they really just took a chance letting me come. And the next day, my uncle asked me if I wanted to go for a walk, and I said yes, and I just shared my story with him. And after sharing my story with him and thinking about adoption, he said, it sounds like you're still thinking about adoption. But previously, when I presented that to my boyfriend, who was in jail, he said, no, don't do it. And I said, okay, I won't, because I don't want to argue. But being in a safe environment here with my aunt and uncle, who are strong believers, and just seeing their faith, they had such a big impact on me. I can't stress that enough. So I asked my uncle, or first I asked my mom and my aunt, and then my uncle, if I could stay here in California. So what was 1 week's vacation turned into 5 months. I didn't go home, didn't go back. And it was very unexpected. But I found Bethany through an 800 number. I don't know what the 800 number was, but I found Bethany, and they sent a pregnancy counselor to my aunt's house, which was Katie, wherever she is, somewhere back there, Katie. And she came to my aunt's house like every week, and just to talk with me and just guide me through the steps, and just to make sure that I was comfortable. I never, ever felt pressured. And yes, I had doubts and I had fears, but I felt the utmost support from Katie and from my family. And then when she brought me profile books, Scott and Brandy, over here, they were the first book that I actually looked through. And I looked through every single one of them, read every single description, looked at every picture, and I even looked at profile books from Georgia, but they just stood out. and I told Katie that I wanted to meet this family. Well, my uncle had went to get us some food one night. This was before we met Scott and Brandy. And ran into some friends of his, Rob and Cheryl, and said, "Can you please pray for my niece? She is here from Georgia, she's pregnant, and she's thinking about adoption." Well, they said, "You should meet our niece and nephew. They would love to adopt your baby. They are adorable, and you would think they're adorable, and she'll think they're adorable, and you would love them." My uncle said, "Everybody wants the baby. Just pray for her." And so they're like, okay, we'll pray for her. Well, come to find out, Scott and Brandy was their niece and nephew. So we had an in. And we knew that before I went to go meet Scott and Brandy. And I remember our first visit, I was so scared because I thought maybe they might not want my baby because I had done drugs before. And they shared their story about how they met each other and grew up together. 3 and 5 years old, that's a long time. And they were precious to me. Like, I loved them immediately. And at the end, Scott, we told them how we had an in, and Brandy's cried immediately. She said, "This is God." And I was like, "Yes." And anyway, so Scott and Brandy, at first they were only open to partial openness. And I knew that I needed to know. Like, I needed to know that my son was taken care of. I needed to know what his life would turn out like. And, I wanted that openness. But at the end of our first meeting, Scott looked at me and he said, "Jennifer, if you should decide to pick us, then we're open to as much openness as you want, and that I could set the boundaries." And I said, "If I should decide to pick you, you're already it. You're getting a baby." And so it has been such a blessing knowing them. God orchestrated all of it. Brandy is like my sister. I don't feel like there is nothing that I can keep from her. And she tells me everything, even secrets. This whole experience has changed my life. And once when I had no future, God has completely taken my story and turned my whole life around because of it. And one thing I like to remember is that God's power, God's strength and power is made perfect in weakness. And He uses it for His glory. And He has given me a passion that I didn't even know I had. Passion for families, passion for babies and children. And He used me and just... He just completely turned my life around, and He helped me to see a future for myself. And there's a scripture that's like, we are the light of the world, and light is to be on a lampstand for all to see, or a city on the hill, something like, I'm not quoting it verbatim, but I feel like Bethany was that light for me. Bethany gave me hope, because when I was hopeless and didn't know what I was going to do because I was pregnant and I couldn't see a life for myself, much less my baby, they gave me hope and they gave me support. And I learned how to love myself again. And so that led me to want to work for Bethany. And I worked for Bethany in the Atlanta office. And I know the day that they called me and said I was unofficially hired, I probably screamed in my supervisor's ear. And I'm still in awe. I'm still in shock. I cannot, when I look at my past, and I look at the days that I just couldn't see past the day that I was living, and that I can look forward to tomorrow and look forward to what God has in store for me in the future, I'm in amazement. So there's not a day that I don't doubt, that God is with me or that He exists or anything, because I've seen so much of His work firsthand. And when I see my son, and he knows me, Last year when I came to visit, he ran up to me and said, "My birth mom, my birth mom." That blew me out of the water. But I'm eternally grateful, and I will continue to just inspire and work for Bethany. Like I would never leave. I would never leave them. So, thank you for hearing my story.